it didn't go as many of us wanted. It went the way some wanted as far as our elections are concerned. But the dangers are there. The dangers are there. As an educational institution, KPFT is designated to tell you the things that are occurring. And right now, our media is in trouble. Good morning to Anna Hart from Washington State. And good morning to Gayla Kunis from Georgia. Great to have you here in the chat as well. By the way, folks, and I'm going to put this in the chat, my Blue Sky, I've also started my migration to the Blue Sky. Blue Sky is the alternative to Twitter. And what we want to do is make sure to get that baby well populated. So I am going to put in the chat my Blue Sky address. And that is at egbertowillies.bsky.social. Again, my call on Blue Sky is at Egberto Willies, all one word. Good morning, Paul Fleming from from Powder Springs, Georgia. Welcome to the program. Anyway, we're going to start today with what's happening in media. A few days ago, our good friend Tom Hartman wrote a piece called "Will Trump's Return Coincide with the Death of Progressive Media?" We all must support and share with our friends those outlets where we find useful news and information. If we fail to do so, America's media landscape may soon mirror those of autocratic nations the incoming president so admires. A lot of times people don't understand how serious things are until they're upon us and there's no return. Unfortunately, when you are being indoctrinated, the procedures are very well founded. It's called normalization. Imagine 15 years ago, somebody with the qualifications of Donald Trump, someone that did the things that Donald Trump have done, both to women, both legally, economically, etc. Somebody like that wouldn't stand a chance of ever being elected. However, you start having normalization. You slowly change what is right. You slowly change what is acceptable, an inch at a time. Or you make something so outlandish a one-time success that people start to think about it as normal. Then you can get away with just about anything. And that is kind of where we are right now. Again, I mentioned this ad nauseum. Having re-elected a thug, having re-elected a person a judge referred to as a rapist after having been found liable for sexual assault, someone who has robbed the salaries of his employees, someone who has left contractors that built his building unpaid and threatened with lawsuits, someone who has stolen from, and all of these things are not conjecture, these things are fact. But that in the past, just one of those things happening, grabbing onto women's parts, just one of those things in the past would have disqualified anyone from the presidency. But normalization has occurred. We have normalized that is okay, and that is no longer something that stops you from being able to be president. And in doing so, then what's next? We've elected him. The degeneracy of the population, and that's the only way we can look at it, the degeneracy of the population that normalization has created. And you have to ask yourself an important question. How far will this go? How far will be the normalization of evil go? Because as it goes far, you remember Donald Trump in his past rallies would tell people just go ahead and beat him up on the head or knock his head or whatever. And it's okay. Normalization. Well, the normalization is also aided by our media. I'm talking specifically of right-wing media, a media that once believed or would preach that the things Donald Trump has done made you unacceptable for higher office, but who normalized it? Who eventually said, it is okay? People, I ask thee, when does it end? How far does it go? Well, Tom Hartman's piece is a good start. He said, have you heard of that Comcast is planning to sell MSNBC? Is Rupert Murdoch planning to buy it? Will America's media landscape soon resemble those of Hungary and Russia? Without the right-wing media juggernaut, Donald Trump probably wouldn't be president next year and wouldn't have won in 2016. That said, the progressive media landscape looks like it might be about to get a whole lot worse. Comcast, which owns NBC and its subsidiaries, CNBC and MSNBC, among other media outlets, announced this week that they'll be, and that's last week, that they'll be spinning off MSNBC among others next year, and the consequences are already showing up. It was reported last week that Rachel Maddow just took a substantial annual pay cut because of the uncertain future of the network. In part, this probably reflects a belt tightening at Comcast, but it is also an indication of how legacy media, which now includes cable properties, are taking a hit from newer digital media, from social media to podcasts to web-based network programs. In part, this probably reflects a belt tightening, yeah, but the principal analyst and VP of content for market research company eMarketer, Paul Verna, told the AP that the writing is on the wall, that cable TV business is a dwindling business, and the AP noted is predicting future consolidation of the networks or acquisition through private equity. You see, these guys can all be profitable, but if they're not profitably growing exponentially, they're unloaded to the next thing that can be to the next organization or the next entity from which we can extract. Private equity like Bain Capital and large media operations acquisitions have long history of gutting media properties to increase their profitability. Yes, to increase their profitability, they've done that. Air America Radio, for which Tom Hartman, he actually wrote the business plan, and which carried his program, was on the air in virtually every major market in the United States, having leased over 50 major high-powered stations. But he actually used to beat Rush Limbaugh in a lot of times. But Air America kept losing station after station as they changed their programming, mostly to right-wing programming. And here we are, the election of a president sanctioned by the right wing. Musk, of course, will be in charge of identifying those parts of government or institutions funded by the government, which means pretty much goodbye to NPR. NPR, which many like to call progressive, far from it, but like many call it progressive, will likely be defunded and dependent on external sources of funding. And likely those external forces will probably change its type of programming, which is the true fair and balance. Anyway, right-wing billionaires brought us Fox News, Sinclair, two other web and cable-based right-wing TV stations, channels, nationwide networks of hate radio, now also in Spanish. People are wondering, how comes the Latino folks are jumping to the right? Well, mostly Latino men jumping to the right. Well, guess what? Yeah. And I've been talking about this for several months now. Right-wing media is saturated with hate radio paid for by the billionaires. So when Democrats sat down and kept on talking about demographic is our answer, demographics is our answer, a nurtured demographic is no answer. An unnurtured demographic is no answer, because the right is always there and ready to nurture that demographic. And guess what the right is doing right now? They have successfully entered the Spanish market. And in so doing, I ask everyone here, please go listen to Spanish radio. Go listen to the ads on Spanish radio. And you see where we're heading, folks. Lack of investment of the left, while the right continues to invest in your minds. Not to mention the entire network of billionaire-funded, hard, right, phony, pink slime newspapers that pop up around the country every election year. Tens of millions of dollars in subsidies to right-wing podcast hosts. Think about this. Grogan, 6 years ago, was speaking about Medicare for all. He was speaking about healthcare. He was speaking about education for kids. Grogan sounded like a left-winger 6 years ago. I don't have the time to play a 10-minute piece that one of my PDR Posse members on 3 o'clock sent me. And Johnny, I'm coming to you in a minute. But Rogan, he was actually promoting a Medicare for all. Then what happened? What happened? Again, who are his funders now? Who is funding these operations? I told you guys last week, Politics Done Right, as an independent media organization, mostly with the progressive left, got offers to switch from the progressive information that I put out there to just become a right-wing stooge. Money, dinero, plata, capital. And I looked and I said, you know what is funny? At the stage in my life where I gave up my engineering company, my software development company to do activism, because I thought I found a way after my bills were all paid to go ahead and invest the good fortune that America has brought into progressive activism to ensure that everybody had that opportunity to move forward. But at a time at the lowest, when things hit pretty hard because of illness and other things in a family, that looked great. Going to the right looked great. Wow, well compensated. It could be well compensated, man. And then you sit back and you think, how do you look yourself in the mirror? How do you say, you know what? I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. I can't do that. But you know what? There are thousands out there that are willing to do it. There are thousands out there that have done it. And that corruption, that normalization that I spoke about at the beginning of the program is occurring, continues to occur. Anyway, there's no equivalent politically tilted media systems on the left. Democratic leaning billionaires have stayed out of the media space ever since Romney's company took down Air America. The closest TV and radio counterpart we have, and listen to these small networks that we have as progressive media, what I call truthful media. And as Tom points out, it is Free Speech TV, available on the web, Dish, Sling, Roku, Apple TV, and DirecTV. And the progressive channel on Sirius XM. His daily program is carried there. I want you guys to think about that. True progressive news can only be found in very small spots. Of course, with the advent of Substack, a lot of independent media guys that have been dumped by the corporatocracy or dumped by, because again, they spill too much of the truth. They've now many migrated to Substack, which I am on now as well. Substack, which is, and by the way, I'm at egberto.substack.com, egberto.substack.com. But again, you can also find it at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Many of us in the progressive media, because of cost, we don't have the monies to put big production companies up or whatever. So we become our own independent media spaces on platforms like Substack. And now many of us have migrated to Blue Sky and other places, right? But that's all we have, an ad hoc setup of progressive media. How do we change that? How do we ensure that 2025, when Donald Trump takes command of this country, that somehow when MSNBC is sold, which MSNBC isn't even a clean left channel, just sort of marginally left. But when MSNBC is sold, all we got, Free Speech TV, Mother Jones, The Nation, The New Republic, The Guardian, and a few other outlets, Common Dreams, Alternate, A Progressive, Democratic Underground, Daily Kos. There are not many sources compared to the right-wing indoctrination machine. And you know who solves that? Only you can. Only you can solve that by ensuring that you read and you share and you make people aware of all of those doing the work in the progressive media. That's the only way. It has to be geometric progression from the individual, or I should say exponential growth. If everyone shares 10 pieces of information every day that those of us in the progressive space put out, again, I repeat, if all of those who read a politicsdoneright.com/newsletter or a Tom Hartman or any one of these, if any of you make sure to share our content 10 times and ask each of those people to share 10 times, we start to get exponential progression of our data in the hands of people who trust you and trust those who you trust. It has to be grassroots going forward. It has to be grassroots going forward. Folks, I hope this little narrative, this little soliloquy starts to lay upon you the importance in getting the progressive media out there and getting you to be a part of it. Back at Coffee Party USA, at the time that I was a board member, we had a program called Be the Media. And what it was telling every individual was that you had to play a part. It was imperative that you play a part in getting truth to your fellow man. When you tell the truth to 10 people who trust you, it's much more effective than just them listening to Fox News because they trust you. That is one thing many of us should understand. So all of us must be the media. All of us must be sharing progressive media, and all of us must be remaining engaged with all of those, whether we like them or not, whether they're MAGA or right wing. We always have to keep that engagement and push that truth. Some of it will not be accepted, but keep pushing that truth.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.